A very good morning. Asinivutele masodla mahle sekusile futhi sethemba usiniphilile lo mhla ekseni. It is the 12th of February 2025. Good morning and welcome to Kusile Breakfast Show. Bitelami ngilungelele makakola sibonga ukuthi umdala siphephise side sibone lilanga lanamuhla. Ma temperatures solo aphasi lapha embabane lo muhla nje sivuka nje solo kunetinkhungu kuyabanza impela. Sithemba ukuthi niphilile lo mhla ekseni. Thank you for tuning in. Kunengele siniphathele kona lo mhla ehlelweni sabe sikhuluma tindzaba de bantfu labasha netikhwama labanato ukuthi bakhona ukudlobalisa emabhizinisi abo noma bakhona ukucala emabhizinisi abo. Ingonyama nje naye etfule inkulumo yayo ngebantfu labasha nayivule eParliament yaveta ukuthi yathi kusita abantu labasha ngemali yecala noma ke kudlobalisa emabhizinisi solo kusemgomeni wahulumende ngekusebenzisa sikhwama sakhe uhulumende iYouth Enterprise Revolving Fund. Abantu labasha ke banemicondvo leminingi yetemabhizinisi futhi ke badlala indima lenkulu kufaka sandla kufule nomnotho welive kanti kanjalo nje ngalawo mabhizinisi labawacalako kungiteka inombolo yebantfu labathola imisebenzi lapha eveni. Umphathi wesikhwama seYouth Enterprise Revolving Fund Mandla Nkambule sabe sinaye kuvaka ukuthi ngabe sebasita abantu labasha labangaki ngetimali futhi bayakhona yini kuyibhadala kahle le mali ngoba siyakhumula ukuthi lesikhwama lesi sake savalwa phambilini ngetizavote ukuthi abantu labasha bese basakhoni kuyibhadala back le mali. Sifuna ukuva ukuthi ngabe ngimaphi ama strategies manje labawasebenzisako ukuthi abantu labasha bakhona ukuthi bayibhadale le mali ukuthi kutawukhona kusitakala nalabanye abantu labasha labafuna imali khona kulesikhwama. Sibe sinaye lomuhla nga 7:30 hlala nathi ungayinzawo kumanje sibuke nathi lathamba imbili kumaphephandzaba. As for Eswatini Observer, Letamba Imbili this Wednesday morning, King advises world on shaping future governments. Sibaya, a model to emulate Eswatini to fully digitalize in 2 years, and this according to Minister Savannah. That is a picture of His Majesty King Eswatini III after the warm reception he received following his delivery of his keynote address at the official opening of the World Government Summit in Dubai yesterday. And in other news, a 10-year-old pupil commits suicide. Kanti kuletinye thamba imbili 50,000 emalangeni bail for man who attacked Bemandi and chaos as parents close school. Nasibukati indzaba temidlalo kuyaswatini Observer struck off the roll. Supreme Court removes PLE appeal against Wanderers. Kanti letinye lethamba imbili Nsingizini ladies unveil Lesotho star. And in other news, 50 emalangeni for Ingwenyama Cup games and MTN Kemani brings smiles to Mhlatane pupils. Moving on to the Eswatini Daily News, lethamba imbili this morning. King's 4-point advice on shaping future governments. His Majesty King Mswati III has outlined 4 key essential ingredients for shaping future governments, and these include learning from one another, fostering innovation and digital inclusivity, championing sustainable development, and also strengthening global partnerships. He was speaking at Dubai yesterday during the World Government Summit. And in other news, Minister Savannah says Eswatini to fully digitalize in 2 years. Kansiletini Latamba Mbili, Eswatini A winging its way to Zambia. You can read more on page 3. Nasbuga ETN, Eswatini Daily Music Temidlalo, Makanya PLE in 200,000 Emalangeni Commission dispute. Former Chief Executive Officer Kenneth Makanya filed letter of demand for 10% commission in securing Momo Cup 2 million Emalangeni sponsorship for the Premier League of Eswatini. And in other news, inside you can read Meet Bulls 16-goal new hitman. Luca's quiet debut as Lakers cruise past Jazz. And I said for newspaper headlines, it's 5 minutes after 6. After the breaks, we are in Tindzaba Desiswati.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi aba-research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna senze ukukhiqiza lokusembili.
Asimze silemukele nathi tindzaba tekucala ingonyama itsili vele Eswatini litibophelele ukubamba ematfuba lalethwala uhlangothi lotebuchwepheshe kutfutfukisa tinhlelo talo tekumikisa lusito lwahulumende kubantfu kute lufinyelele kuwo onkhe emaswati ngaphandle kwetincabekelwane. Ingonyama iphefumule ngesikhatsi kuvulwa umhlangano wel-12 wabohulumende bemave emhlaba eveni le-United Arab Emirates. Ingonyama isingetfwe inkhosikati Makela Mahlangu kulolu hambo.
Lo mhlangano wel-12 wabohulumende bemave emhlaba uhlanganise abaholi bemave badzingiza tindzaba letiphatselene nekwakhiwa kwelikusasa labohulumende bemhlaba nekusungulwa kwetinhlelo letinsha tekusebenta ngebuchwephesha kute abohulumende bente kangcono umsebenti wabo ikakhulu ekumikiseni lusito kubantu nasekutfutfukiseni inhlalakahle nemakhono ensha kulokunyenti. Lesinye sihloko lesidzingidwe kabanti nawuvula lo mhlangano kube kusetshenziswa kwenhlakanipho yekwakhiwa lelingisako artificial intelligence kuthuthukisa iminotho yemave. Likusasa lemave liboshelwe ekutheni bohulumende bayisukumele etulo indzaba yokusebentisa tebuchwephesha kuto tonke tinhlelo labatendako. Ingonyama yatise baholi bemave emhlaba ukuthi live leSwatini selivele lilithethe lolunyawo.
With that, it is my great privilege to introduce a distinguished leader whose vision and leadership continue to shape government modernization in his nation and beyond. Your Majesty, King Mswati III, and Ingwenyama, Head of State of the Kingdom of Eswatini, we invite you to deliver the opening address.
Ingonyama ikhutsate emave kutsi yaqinise tinhlelo temnotho, temvelo netenhlalakahle kutsi tihambisane. Silo semhlaba sithi livela kangwane selivele likuwo lo mzila ngekutsi selithuthukisa tinkhundla kutsi tisebente ngebuchwephesha.
Eswatini's government's model is a testimony to the power of harmonizing tradition with modernity. Our Tingundla system is founded on inclusivity, consultation, and community-driven development principles that ensure governance remains deeply rooted in needs of our people. Recognizing the need to evolve, we have embraced reforms that drive transparency, efficiency, and citizen engagement. The digital transformation of governance has been a key focus, ensuring that technological advancements empower rather than exclude. At the heart of our vision is innovation-driven development, a commitment to leveraging science and technology to accelerate economic and social progress.
Ingonyama ithi kungumgomo welive leSwatini kukhuphula lizinga lekumikisa lusito lwahulumende esiveni ngekusebenzisa buchwephesha. Lesifakazelo saloku kuluhlelo lwa government in your hand.
In the Kingdom of Eswatini, we are committed to building a smart government that is efficient, citizen-centric, and technology-driven. Our vision is to harness digital technologies to improve service delivery, eliminate inefficiencies, and ensure that all citizens have access to essential government services. We are prioritizing e-government solution, government in your hand. We will leverage the potential of artificial intelligence to make this vision a reality.
Ingonyama ithi usaqhubeka lo mhlangano livele Eswatini limengemumo kushela naligwayi nalamanye emave kude ifezeke yonke imigomo yetihloko labatawugcila kito baholi. Ingonyama ke isingethwe tindvuna tembuso letawuthi uma usaqhubeka umhlangano tingenele imisebenzi liyahlukahlukene lephathelene nematiko ato. Lebikakwethu indzabeni ngisandile Makhanya enathabiso Dlamini edolobheni Dubai kulase United Arab Emirates.
Imvuna yelitiko letekwatisa kuchumana nebuchwepheshe imphunga Savana Mazia ithi kukhulu lokungazuzwa ngemave elihlangothini lotebuchwepheshe uma angakukhuthalela kusebenzisana nekwabelana imicondvo lemisha. Imvuna beyikhuluma emhlanganweni weli-12 wabohulumende bemave emhlaba eveni le-United Arab Emirates.
Yendvuna ibe ingcenye yetingxoxo naletinye tindvuna tekuchumana takumave iColombia ne-Uzbekistan. Tindvuna tidzingidze sihloko lebesibuka ukuthi umhlaba utilungele intingucuko letilethwa luhlangothi lwetebuchwepheshe. Indvuna itsite umhlaba ude kukhetsa ukuthi uyabufuna yini buchwepheshe noma cha, nokuletsa sidzingo sekuthi kube nekubambisana lokukhulu kumave.
But most importantly, I think it's a chance for us to collaborate as a world, to deal and lead differently. We seem to have led from a position of this is mine, I will not share it with anybody, and I do not want to be able to have anybody else progress. This is a time for us to have a leadership that says we collaborate around the world, let's learn from old lessons, and let's figure out how we make the world digital, but friendly, but safe, and ensure that it's cost effective, because around the world, not everyone can be able to afford to access where we're going. But we need to be able to ensure that nobody's left behind. We need to be able to ensure that women are also part of the conversation. And most importantly, we need to ensure that the youth are part of the conversation.
Indvuna ithumise sivumelwano sekusebenzisana kwelive leSwatini nelive le-United Arab Emirates kutebuchwepheshe lethi kutawenda live ukuthi lithathe emagxatfu lamakhulu kutebuchwepheshe.
We're also looking at a relationship where we continue capacity building. And one of the things that we're talking to the UAE about is the coding experience, which I'm glad to hear others have also been a part of. We're looking to be able to say in the next 2 years, how can Eswatini be able to train 300,000 coders? Now, that may be very little in countries that have very big populations, but we're 1.2 million people. So for us, that number is quite substantial and quite important. We've also been able to learn about how do you ensure that you allow government to really work with the private sector, because sometimes as government we're over here and the private sector's over there. We don't really collaborate.
Lebikakwethu indzabeni ngisandile Makhanya nathabiso Dlamini edolobheni Dubai kulase United Arab Emirates.
Imvuna yelitiko letinkhundla umhlonishwa Sikhumbuzo Dlamini ithi lelitiko lisebenta luhlelo lokucinisa kusebenta kwemiphakathi kude ibe ngulephephile. Imvuna ithi lelihlelo lihlose ukucinisa sitfundi semiphakathi ibiyelwe ikhanyisiwe kude kube betelo ngenano makanjani emphakathi.
Litiko letinkundla nekuthuthukiswa kwato lithi imiphakathi yelive imcoke ekuphathweni nasekuphileni kwelive laseSwatini ngulapha eMaswati akhungelwe khona. Yonke ke intuthuko yelive litiko letinkundla lethi ikhungele imiphakathi kungako kumele iphephe. Indvuna lelitiko umhlonishwa Sikhumbuzo Dlamini uthi kungako lelitiko lisebenta luhlelo lokubiyela imiphakathi ikhanyiswe kubade nje umuntu longena sinoma kanjani emiphakathi.
Emiphakathini akuvalelwe kwanze ukuthi kubiyelwe ngaloku jabulisako akungeni noma ngibani noma ngikuphi alibe linye lesango lengena emphakathini lokho siyakusebenzisa silitiko lokuthi imiphakathi ayiphephe. Lokunye ke sisafaka labo fenisi sivayela imiphakathi sibuke ukuthi kufuna siyikhanyise futhi imiphakathi emphakathini ekukhanye kuze kuthi kubede mathabela ngodi la ngangena emphakathini. Sitawukhumbula lokuthi lapho libuya khona live letidlamlilo lama terrorist angena semiphakathini alimata abantu emphakathini kwaba nemphefumulo. Silitiko sesisukumile ke lokuthi akukhanye emphakathini akuvayeleke emphakathini. Lokunye lesikwenta kosilitiko sibukile nje ukuthi kube khona imali satisebenzisa ekutheni sibe nabo boyabo chief bezivele sihlangana nabo but kule program yethu nyalo noma lo hlaka lokusebenza kwethu nyalo sitawuphinze sicele lababhobokile kusibambisa ukuthi balekelele kufundzisa noma ke kucinisa ngedalwadi ezabente ebuholi kubobayo tikhulu utawukhumbula lokuthi live lakangwane tikhulu tingena njalo tiphume njalo kanye nasesihambile esikhulu emhlabeni bese kungena lomunye lomusha losophakanyisiwe kuyadzinga lokuthi silitiko vele ngoba tikhulu siyasebenzisana nato vele nebantu bokusabuka ummango kuyadzinga lokuthi vele sibuke indlela yokuthi vele sibaceceshe noma ke sibasite kubabambisa endzabeni tebuholi.
Indvuna ithi ngalolu hlelo lelitiko lihlose kugcina sifundise imiphakathi yelive kude kuphephe boba betikhulu nebantu abenkosi lababuke imango nesive sasendlunkulu basenda imisebenzi yentuthuko yawo imango yelive. Edindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza nasimuva Shongwe eMbabane.
Kanti ngakulokunye indvuna sikhumbuzo ithi litiko liyachubeka nekucinisa tinhlelo tekumikisa lusito lwahulumende esiveni. Indvuna ithi litiko selubhalile umthetho losakhankanywa lotawubuka kuphathwa kwemimango yelive i-Local Government Bill lotawubona kuthuthuka kwemimango netinkhundla telive.
Seyikhona i-draft bill izero draft nyalo nje lesikwentako sihlela umsebenzi omkhulu lesitawuba nawo even lapho khona sitawucela lamavele sihambe kuwo nasiyawuhlola ukuthi bona bayenda kanjani local government umthetho wayo sikhanzile ke lokuthi kuningi labanako ngokwehlukana kwawo lendzaba le ye local government indzaba lenkulu iphose itinde kwasa kuyakhwala umthethosisekelo enza consultation kufuna bayiqonze mbamba labantu labatayisebenta ngoba bangayiconzi vele tabakhwala resistance lokuthi wonke umuntu uva ngathi kutongimuca umsebenzi wami kanti local government ayimuci umuntu umsebenzi utawuchubeka ibe khona imisebenzi yebantu but iqiniso lithi sithi indlela yokubaleka kufuna vele lama services la central government agcine vele devolved lokuyale phasi kuma local authorities kungako ke vele silungisa nje ukuthi kufuna singakahambi kakhulu neminyaka sibe nayo le conference lapho khona sitawulandza ama experts atochaza lokuthi vele bakachieve njani bona kubasebentela njani bona singakwenta njani thina engcono ukuthi kusebenteke.
Mapalane lomkhulu etiko letindlu nokuthuthukisa emadolobha Dr. Simon Zwane uthi lelitiko libutha imininingwane letawukhomba ukuthi tikuphi futhi tinganani tikhebese lekumele tilungiswe emadolobheni lokufaka ekhatsi takhiwo kanye nemigwaqo kubala kulokunye. Lo mapalane uthi lesinye izatfu lesendaba masipala bangakhoni kunika lusito ngalokunetisako ukuthi imali lebotfwako yema rates ayibi ngulenele kwenda yonke imisebenzi. Dr. Zwane ukusho lokhu ngesikhathi yaphendula ukuthi kungani imigwaqo netakhiwo emadolobheni kungabi sesimeni lesihle kanti sive lesesemadolobheni siyawabhadala ema-rates.
Uma uya etindzaweni tasemadolobheni lukhona lolu maye lokuthi imigwaqo ayihambeki kumbeke naletinye tinhlobo tabo infrastructure letifake ekhatsi indzaba tabo gezi indzaba tabo manti nalokunye bo stormwater drainage la emadolobheni kuliciniso lokho ukuthi kubhekeke singabe lesimo singcono na ungena edolobheni kodwa ke siyabona ukuthi akhona lama gaps lakhona kuyo indzaba ye-infrastructure litiko ke kulamalanga nje liphishanekile nawo emadolobha kubuyisa ndzawonye nangingasho njalo noma ke kugcoca i-information.
Litiko letemfundvo nelitiko letisebenzi nenhlalakahle yato ngekusekelwa lihhovisi lalonxusele live le-Taiwan kuleli basukumise umchutselwano wemakhono kuleli letongenelwa bantfu labasha. Lo mncintiswano usehlangothini lokupheka kushisela kanye nekwakha timvo tebuchwephesha ye-automotive technology. Imvuna yelitiko letemfundvo bemelelwe lisekela lamabhalane lomkhulu kuleli tiko naNiki Mnisi kanti imvuna yetisebenzi nenhlalakahle yato imelelwe lisekela lamabhalane lomkhulu kulelitiko Anthony Masilela.
Luhlangothi lwe-Taiwan Technical Missions Technical and Vocational Skills Certification Enhancement Project ngilolo libuko lomchutselwano aneminyakeni lengcile lohlelo lelo luyayelishiye tindzawo tekwenta imisebenzi yemakhono lifuke kakhulu lokufaka ekhasi likolegi laseScotty igwamile kanye nase-DIVT. Lonxuso lelive lase-Taiwan kuleli mbasada Jeremy Lieng uthi lokhu kutawusita ukuthi labo labangenelelwa umchutselwano bagcine bakhona kuthuthukisa imikhiqizo yabo ibe sezingeni lemhlaba.
Today, Eswatini is taking a crucial step forward And I'm confident that this competition will have a lasting impact on the development of technical and vocational education in the country.
Lisekela mabhayelo omkhulu etiko letemfundo naNiki Mnisi bekazamele indvuna yaleli tiko umhlonishwa wenqumalo.
Hlelo ke kutawuvula emathuba ebantfaneni bemaswati nekukhombisa labanye labawubukele phansi lomsebenzi ukuthi nabo sebangagcuselana nembala kulalela phela shukumso senkosi umswati wesithathu batfole emathuba ekucasha labanye batfole nekuthi nabo babhizinisi bamikise esandla lesiyemlonyeni emakhaya.
Umqhudelwano lobitwa ngeSwatini National Skills Competition waqala ngenyanga yenche eminyakeni lophelile bebangu-105 lebangenelwe umqhudelwano kanti bavile tifundze ntotini etela kuleli ehlangothini lekupheka abangu-40 labangenelwe umqhudelwano babengu-35 ehlangothini lokushisela bese kwakhwe intindvo tebuchwepheshe babengu-30 kwase kuyahlungwa ngenyanga yengongoni kuwumnyaka lophelile basala babangu-59 netinhlangothini tonke kanti manje iqhudelwano labangu-30 bangu-10 ekuphekeni babengu-12 ekushiseleni bese babangu-8 ekwakheni intindvo tebuchwephesha etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla ngilabongani Masuku seHappy Valley ezulwini.
Lomunye umsebenzi wetinkampani kubambisa uhulumende nemimango kunakekela sive nebantfwana labadzinga lusito kute inhlalakahle yabo ibe ngulengcono. Lokhu kuvetwe ngumphathi wenkampani yemanti kuleli Jabulile Mashwama ngesikhathi lenkampani inekelela sikolwa sesekwethembeni ngema-uniform esikolwa nabongcondvomshina labasihlanu.
Inkampani yemani yeSwatini Water Services Corporation kuleli viki lendvulelanga lekuniketa lutsandvo noma ke Valentine's Day ivakashela tindzawo letahlukene even kwenabisa lutsandvo. Ngalesibili lenkampani ivakashele isikole sebantfwana labakhetsekile ikwethembeni special school lapho inikelele khona ngema-uniforms ebafundzi nema-laptops lasihlanu lokutfulwe ngumphathi walenkampani Jabulile Mashwama lovetile kutsi kumgcwa kutsi tinkampani even nato tifake ligalelo kuti enhlalakahle nasentfutfukweni yelive.
Kufanele si-contribute into the sustainable development of the country. So sine corporate social responsibility program ke le ibuketa tinhlangothi letiningi letifaka ekhatsi tindzaba tekuphila ka healthcare tindzaba education tindzaba nje letonke letilhlupho even siyati ke tsine siyinkampani ukuthi ngaphandle kwalemimango kude lesingaba ngiko siconza kahle ukuthi kusimama kwayo kusita ukuthi kusimame lelive kusimame naSwatini Water Services. We're calling on companies as well to actually step up and ensure that we take care of the communities in which we do work in, because without making sure that they're sustainable, we will not have business tomorrow, we will not have a nation tomorrow. So it's incumbent upon all of us that have got some forms of productivity that we go out there and we ensure that we uplift communities. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here at Wetsembeni School for the special needs children. We have been educated. We came with a big team from Eswatini Water Services just to learn, to understand what is it that the nation is faced with and what are the challenges that are out there.
Umphathi walesikolo alindiwe Mhlanga ubonge lusito.
Sibonge kakhulu konke labasendele kona bafike bantwana babaphathele ema-computer babaphathele emakhekhe babaphathele ne-uniform. Sibonga kakhulu ngiyathemba nakubatali utaba injabulo lenkulu nabafika bababona sebakhokha i-uniform labanye babo vele kuba bede kakhulu bebahawulisa siyabonga kakhulu.
Lenkampani ke ihlele imali lengu-600,000 emalangeni wetinhlelo tekonwabisa lona lutsandvo kufaka ekhatsi kulungisa ligumbi lekubelekela nendzawo yekumela lusito esibhedlela sakaHlatsi. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza nginasimuva Shongwe eMbabane.
Inhlangano yetemabhizinisi Business Eswatini seyivete timvo letahlukene lefise kutibona kumaphakelo letitawusita kutfutfukisa umnotfo welive. Mengameli walenhlangano Mvuselelo Fakutse uthi babheke ukuthi yehle imali yemaphakelo lonyaka ikakhulu ngobe yehlile imali yakasakho lokutawenda ukuthi litiko letemafa lisebenzise i-Revenue Stabilization Fund kepha-ke kunetinhlangothi lababheke ukuthi tisekeleke kangcono.
Bantu bethu emakhaya lesihleli nabo labafunzile bade imisebenzi ngakho ke siyafisa kubona ibudget letaw accommodate letaw cabangela labantwana labahlele emakhaya ukuthi bona bangakhona njani ukuthola imisebenzi. Siyathi ke ukuthi nakanye tibhedlela tahulumende betitfoleka kakhulu kulomnyaka lesiphuma kuwo ngenzaba yetinto yemaphilisi nako konke lokho lokuthinyako etibhedlela. Siyethemba ukuthi kule budget speech minister utawusita kubuka ukuthi singasebenza kanjani esilive ukuthi labo labakweledwako ukuze ukuthi bakhone ukusupplya ama-medicines to tibhedlela naka-central medical stores ukuthi kutawusebenteka kahle kutawu-allocate i-budget leyanele. Siyethemba ukuthi umnotho utawu-expanda nama-capital projects siyathi ukuthi khona stabilization fund e-central bank esesakho ngoba siyeva sakho ukuthi sitawuncipha kulo mnyaka. So siyethemba ukuthi-ke le stabilization fund sitawusita ukuthi le impact ingabi nkulu kakhulu kuyo i-budget yakhe uhulumende.
Inhlangano yabosomabhizinisi yabamfula abasha i-Youth Chamber of Commerce Industries Eswatini nayo ivete lokho lefisa ukubona kumaphakelo alonyaka.
Sicela less talking but more impact, less conferences, less forums and workshops, but more implementing of policies that actually atawusita abantu labasha ukuthi bapropele emabhizinisini. Abantu labasha every year i-budget baya-anticipate ukuthi itabasita. So this year siyacela ukuthi sibe intentional ngoku-investa kuma-policy latawukhona, especially when implementing because ma-policy siyawakha, but the investment into the actual implementation of the policy, that's where kusala lapho.
Emaphakelo eminyakeni lophelile beka ku-29.4 billion emalangeni. Litiko letemfundo latfola imali leningi njengoba beyiku-5 billion emalangeni lebekadze ifaka ekhatsi 194 million emalangeni wemali yebamfana bendlunkulu na 647 million wemfundzate. Litiko letempilo latfola 3 billion emalangeni kanti 909 million emalangeni wafakwa kutinhlalakahle ehhovisini leliphini ndvunankhulu. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelsiwe Ndlangamandla, nginavuma Inkosi Nzinisa eMbabane.
Kanti kutemidlalo lichubekile licala leManzini Wanderers lelingene elangeni lalo lesibili eSupreme Court. Lelicala lisembikwe lijaji Isabelo Mathebula, Nkululeko Hlophe kanye naMargaret van der Walt.
Lichubekile licala leManzini Wanderers embikwe Supreme Court ngalesibili lapho khona inhlangano yePremier League beyifaka emaphepha aphuthumako iphikisa sijubo lesaphuma inkantolo lenkulu eminyakeni lophelile ukuthi iPremier League ibuke indlela yokulungisa liphutha noma-ke kuthi kungeteke amacembu ladlala kaPremier League abe ngu-15 noma-ke 16 kodwa-ke kulungiswe liphutha lelenteka kuthi iManzini Wanderers ebuye idlaliswe. Bese kuyavela ukuthi isijubo saloko angeke sikhishwe kunginyalo kusamele ukuthi kuphume lesinye isijubo lapho khona iMonen Pirates kanye nalabamele Jimo Moses kutholakale bona ngemsombuluko ukuthi kungete emaphepha lafakazela ukuthi phambilini bafaka emaphepha pheceleti i-lack of records. Ngaphambi kwaloko licembu leManzini Wanderers lichubeka nekuvetela inkantolo ukuthi bathe ngaliside kulendzaba kubukwe indlela lekungasheshiswa ngayo ilungiswe lendzaba kumiswe isizini lesetulu. Kuleli cala iManzini Wanderers imelelwe ngumduduzi Mabila kanzi Lucas Maziya umelele licembu leMonen Pirates kanye naJimo Moses. IPremier League of Eswatini imelelwe ngumeluleki Ndlangamandla. Lendzaba isembikwe amajaji lamathathu lokunguNkululeko Hlophe, Sabelo Mathebula kanye naMargaret van der Walt. Lubikela umsakazo eSwatini TV temidlalo ngilinda Dlamini kanti umbiko uhlanganisa nguFabrice Msonera eMbabane.
Umqeqeshi welicembu lemidlalo wokubhukusha iPelicans meluleki Lucas Melane uthi umqhudelwano wePelicans gala lasobanje lebo banje kulempela somvo lephelile bowuyinkhomba ukuthi tinhlambi takuleli setivele tikulungele ukuthi tingangenela umqhudelwano wema-National Championships kulomnyaka. Simelane bekakhuluma ngesikhathi ekuchubeka lo mqhudelwano enjabuleni kaManzini. Sathiphetha ngaleto temidlalo hlala nathi ungayenzako siyabuya khona manje.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi
aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna senze ukukhiqiza lokusembili.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. This is the Wednesday edition of Kusile Breakfast Show. We continue. The Undersecretary General of the United Nations Office of Counter-Terrorism, Vladimir Voronkov, told the Security Council that the volatile situation in the Syrian Arab Republic is of great concern, especially as there is a risk that stockpiles of advanced weapons could fall into the hands of terrorists.
I am honored to brief the Security Council on the 20th report of the Secretary General on the threat posed by Daesh to international peace and security and the United Nations efforts in support of member states in countering this threat. I am pleased to be joined by Assistant Secretary General and Executive Director of Counterterrorism Committee Executive Directorate, Ms. Natalia German, to present this report, which was prepared jointly by our offices. I would also like to thank Mr. Colin Smith, coordinator of the Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team, for their contribution in preparation of the report. Mr. President, Excellencies, the terrorism landscape is evolving and demands collective multilateral action as terrorist attacks threaten life, well-being, and the fundamental rights and freedoms of individuals. Despite steady counter-terrorism efforts by member states, international and regional partners, Daesh continues to demonstrate resilience and adapt its modus operandi. The volatile situation in the Syrian Arab Republic is of great concern, especially as there is a risk that stockpiles of advanced weapons could fall into the hands of terrorists. The Syrian Badi region continues to serve as a center for Daesh external operational planning and a critical region for their activities. This instability also affects the camps, detention, and other facilities in the northeast of the country. An estimated 42,500 individuals, some with alleged links to Daesh, remained held. This includes 17,700 Iraqi and 16,200 Syrian nationals, as well as 8,600 nationals from other countries. Regrettably, the overall pace of repatriations declined significantly in the reporting period. Only 5 member states reportedly repatriated more than 760 individuals from Iraq and the Syrian Arab Republic. The government of Iraq repatriated approximately 400 Iraqi children from the northeast of the Syrian Arab Republic to a rehabilitation center. I would like to commend Iraq's leadership in facilitating the return of its citizens from northeast Syria. I reiterate the Secretary General's call for member states to facilitate the safe, voluntary, and dignified repatriation of their nationals still stranded in those camps and facilities. ISIL Khorasan has continued to pose a significant threat in Afghanistan, the region, and beyond. In addition to attacks in Afghanistan, ISIL Khorasan supporters plotted attacks in Europe and were actively seeking to recruit individuals from Central Asian states. There were also reports of small numbers of foreign terrorist fighters continuing to travel to Afghanistan. I would like to recall the Secretary General's appeal to all member states to unite to prevent Afghanistan from again becoming a hotbed of terrorist activities. In sub-Saharan Africa, Daesh and its affiliates continued to increase their operations and expand territorial control. The situation is deeply concerning in West Africa and the Sahel, where Daesh affiliates and other terrorist groups intensified attacks, including against schools in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Both the Islamic State in the Greater Sahara and the Islamic State's West Africa province continue to operate and recruit fighters across borders. In East Africa, Daesh in Somalia successfully recruited foreign terrorist fighters, and the Al-Qarar office remains a key financial and coordination hub for Daesh in the region. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the allied democratic forces remained resilient despite the military operations conducted by Congolese and Ugandan forces and perpetrated horrific attacks resulting in over 300 civilian fatalities. Mr. President, Excellencies, the resilience of terrorist groups underscores the need for sustained international collaboration. Member states must prioritize comprehensive, long-term responses that address the conditions conducive to terrorism, while strengthening the rule of law and upholding international human and humanitarian rights. The United Nations continues to adapt and tailor its capacity-building support to the evolving of the threat posed by Daesh and its affiliates. I would like to highlight 4 priority areas of focus. First, as Sub-Saharan Africa has become the epicenter of global terrorism, we have prioritized capacity-building support to the continent. Last year, my office increased its delivery of technical assistance by 16%. For instance, our fusion cell program delivered specialized training to 124 analysts from 21 African member states. Our Vulnerable Targets program provided tailored support to 5 new African beneficiaries, including Benin, Côte d'Ivoire, Kenya, Mauritania, and Senegal, to enhance the security of critical infrastructures and soft targets. Second, in the light of the situation in northeast Syria, the United Nations continue to advise and support member states in their efforts to prosecute, rehabilitate, and reintegrate individuals associated with terrorist groups. In Iraq, my office provided advice, training, and equipment to assist with the registration and screening of adults seeking repatriation from the Al-Hol camp in close coordination with other UN entities. And in Central Asia, UNOST, the United Nations Regional Center for Preventive Diplomacy for Central Asia, and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe supported the organization of the second meeting of the Regional Expert Council on Rehabilitation and Reintegration of Returnees. In the context of returnees, it's important to recall that many people who are now in camps in Syria and Iraq actually fled from Daesh violence. It's therefore paramount that we continue to amplify victims' voices to ensure sustained support for victims of terrorism. To pursue these goals, the Office of Counterterrorism co-organized with the government of Spain the International Conference on Victims of Terrorism last October, convening participants from 66 countries. Third, we need to further strengthen border security to counter terrorism, to counter movements of terrorists. Last November, my office partnered with the governments of the state of Kuwait and Tajikistan in the framework of the Dushanbe process to organize a high-level conference on strengthening international cooperation and building agile border security mechanism. The Kuwait Declaration on Border Security and Management emphasized the importance of multilateral cooperation and innovative border security measures. Meanwhile, our flagship All of UN Countering Terrorist Travel program continued to expand with 63 beneficiary member states who are increasingly relying on the Go Travel software to collect and process passenger data to detect and prevent terrorist movements. Fourth, we continue to support member states in harnessing the opportunities offered by new technologies. In November, we launched the City Tech Plus initiative with Interpol and the European Union to provide tailored support to address the misuse of new technologies for terrorist purposes. In addition, my office delivered operational trainings to over 100 officials in Southeast Asia and West Africa to operate unmanned aerial systems for counterterrorism and border security purposes. Mr. President, Excellencies, terrorism remains a significant and evolving threat to global peace and security, one that no state can confront in isolation. Sustained multilateral cooperation remains essential to countering terrorism effectively. In the Pact for the Future adopted last September, member states renewed their commitments to a future free from terrorism and highlighted whole-of-government and whole-of-society approaches to counter-terrorism. The United Nations, through its Global Counterterrorism Coordination Compact, remains committed to supporting member states in this regard. By working together, we can address this evolving threat and build a more secure future.
And on another one, Ruiz Maceo told the Security Council in New York that the bloodshed, the result of an alien attack in an area of presence of a rival armed group known as MBEF, is part of the ongoing confrontation between armed groups in various areas of the country where there is a limited presence of the state and where they compete for control over illegal economies.
It is an honor to be joined by Foreign Minister Luis Gilberto Murillo. I am pleased also that Diego Tovar is able, once again, to address the Council in today's session, representing the other signatory party of the agreement. The presence of representatives of both the government and the former FARC-EP reflects their continued commitment to an implementation process that requires their active cooperation. I also look forward to hearing the perspective of Armando Balbuena from the Special High-Level Instance of Ethnic Groups, IAMPE, on the challenges of implementation of the ethnic chapter. Mr. President, as last year drew to a close, Colombians celebrated the 8th anniversary of the peace agreement, taking pride in historic achievements of the peace process, while looking ahead to fresh opportunities to further the cause of peace in 2025. Tragically, the first days of the year have been marred instead by violence. I am deeply saddened by the actions that have bloodied the remote Catatumbo region of northeast Colombia since late last week, claiming dozens of civilian lives, including former combatants, signatories of the peace agreement, as well as local leaders and members of communities. According to numerous reports, many of the victims were individually targeted and killed. The Secretary General issued a statement yesterday evening expressing his deep concern and condemnation of the violence against civilians in Catatumbo. President Petro has announced that he has suspended dialogues with the National Liberation Army, ELN, has traveled to the area of the violence and mobilized government agencies to help those affected. Thousands of persons have been displaced, and there has been an outpouring of appeals from civil society in the region and nationally for an immediate stop to the killing. The bloodshed, the result of an ELN attack in an area presence of a rival armed group known as EMBF, is part of the ongoing confrontation between armed groups and in various areas of the country where there is a limited presence of the state and where they compete for control over illegal economies. I condemn these killings, which are an attack against peace itself. And I call again for armed groups to cease all actions that place at risk the civilian population, including community leaders and peace signatories. I call further for armed groups to permit unhindered access for humanitarian responders. Local teams of the verification mission have assisted in the evacuation of at-risk persons, including ex-combatants from the areas of confrontation. And UN humanitarian colleagues are offering their supports to the affected population. I would like to acknowledge the dedication of our colleagues on the ground in this area, who from the very outset of the crisis have been doing their utmost to help those in danger and in need. Mr. President, Catatumbo is like many regions of Colombia that are still awaiting the dividends of the 2016 peace agreement in terms of a comprehensive presence of the state that would bring public services, legal economies, development opportunities, and security. It is in the vacuum of state presence that illegal armed groups are fighting for territorial and social control. Implementation of the peace agreement is central as ever to lasting solutions for preventing and resolving the causes of armed conflict. The Secretary General, in his report, acknowledges the strong commitment of the government to the implementation of the peace agreement. Translating the abundant desire for progress into increased results in the period ahead will depend not only on continued political will, but on establishing clear objectives and priorities, safeguarding resources, and overcoming obstacles to coordination. In this regard, I welcome the recent assurance by President Petro that budgets for the peace agreement will be protected despite the currently complex financial climate in the country. The success of the Ministry of the Interior's Rapid Response Plan aimed at accelerating implementation will depend directly upon the availability of resources to deliver. For example, on its promise to speed development and infrastructure projects to regions prioritized in the peace agreement under the newly established territorial pacts. Also in relation to rural reform, which has seen significant progress over the past year, funding will be essential for the adjudication and formalization of land. Mr. President, it is critical to accelerate the implementation of the ethnic chapter of the peace agreement, which focuses on the needs and priorities of Colombia's Afro-Colombian and indigenous communities, including their protection. Too often, they are the most victimized by the violence still plaguing rural Colombia. The Bari and Yucpa are among the populations affected by the violence taking place in Catatumbo, for instance. We are hopeful also that the gender provisions of the peace agreement will move forward more rapidly in their implementation, in synergy with the new National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. This also requires adequate funding, a territorial approach, proactive leadership, and constant engagement with women's organizations. Reintegration continues to be an inspiring example of how peace is changing the lives of former combatants and communities. I was able to appreciate this 2 weeks ago when I visited the territorial area for training and reintegration of Tierra Grata in the department of Cesar. Former combatants demonstrated various achievements in the reintegration so far, such as the construction by their own means of over 70 permanent dwellings and the productive projects such as the shoemaking factory and a road paved together with a nearby community. In places where ex-combatants are living all around the country, significant challenges are yet to be addressed to ensure that the projects are sustainable, housing is improved, and security guaranteed. Señor Presidente.
Mr. President, with regard to the process of transitional justice, it must be recognized that progress has been achieved by the Special Jurisdiction for Peace. This includes indictments, unprecedented indictments of 158 individuals considered to be those mainly responsible for serious crimes committed during the conflict, as well as their findings and their contributions to the truth. Nevertheless, it is still a source of concern that there are disagreements between the jurisdiction and those appearing before it with regard to the schedule and the scope of the proceedings. It is fundamental to continue with a constructive dialogue in order to achieve common visions and solutions that will make it possible to satisfy the rights of the victims and guarantee legal certainty for those participating in the process. The mission will continue to offer its good offices to the parties to this end. The just demands of the victims require a response which includes a broad panoply of instances, which includes but is not limited to the SJP. The SJP is called upon to play a special role as a transitional tribunal whose success will be determined by its capacity to contribute to both justice and to peace. If it manages to strike this delicate balance, the jurisdiction will consolidate its historic legacy, both for Colombia and for the world. This year, when we hope that finally the first sanctions issued by the jurisdiction will come about, there will need to be a decisive commitment and the active involvement of relevant entities of the state in order to establish the conditions for their implementation. Amongst the key actors are the Ministries for Defence and Justice, the Agency for Reincorporation and Unity for the implementation of the agreement. The allotment of the resources necessary will be an indispensable condition to achieve this goal. It is important to bring about effective coordination between the jurisdiction and the government. The demonstration by the state of its capacity for implementation, beginning with its own initial sanctions being issued, is fundamental for the success of the transitional justice process and for the agreement in general.
Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council. Over the past few years, Colombia has clearly demonstrated its commitment to dialogue as the most constructive way of addressing differences and resolving armed conflicts. The United Nations can only agree with that approach as a matter of principle. At the same time, the latest events in Catatumbo show us that any violence against civilians is unacceptable and can be devastating not only to the victims, but also to the very environment for peace talks. Violence erodes trust and legitimacy among the parties, communities, and public opinion at large that is essential for any peace process to succeed.
Right, and that was the UN and the UN Security Council condemning violence in one of their conferences which they held this week. It's 4 minutes before 7. Let's take a break and we'll be back with the traffic update.
Welcome to Eswatini Lifestyle. This is your ultimate guide to the entertainment, to the lifestyle and the culture of Eswatini.
Eswatini Lifestyle. Eswatini Lifestyle.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
From 6:30 to 7 p.m. On Eswatini TV, sibuko semaswati.
On Eswatini TV, sibuko semaswati.
Asiphenze sinemukele sifuna ukuvasema somgwaco linyalo ekseni na Sergeant Nozipho Maseko sikuvusela Nozipho kuhambeka kanjani emigwacweni inyalo ekseni.
Angikuvusele emsakadweni ngiphinze ngivusele nayo umbukelo wemsakazo Eswazi TV. Imigwaco isesihlolile even Eswatini imandi injalo futhi iyashelela kulandela phela imvula lesibe nato ebusuku nalese tisachubeka kuletinye tindzawo. Abashayeli bayaxwayiswa ukuthi abashayeli ngecophelela banciphise litubane labo baphindze banake indlela labalandelana ngayo. Ngalokunye abashayeli bayacela ukuthi abanake phela nasive semaswati lesihamba ngetinyawo bangabatheli ngemandi basahamba baye etikolweni baphindze basaya khona nasemisebentini. Isahlela yona imigwaco nje siyabona ukuthi kuyaphithitela vele abantu labahamba ngetinyawo baningi kakhulu kodwa phela kusekuseni kiwa khona emisebentini nasetikolweni. Umalume bayacela ukuthi basabeka abantwana esikolweni sicela ukuthi bababeke ngekhathi esikolweni bangawabeki ngaphandle ukuthi ngeke kuze bawele yona imigwaco. Kanjalo nabo batali labaphethela abantwana education abenesiqiniseko ukuthi umntwana uyagibela ebhasini bayayibona nale bhasi la igibele. Sisahlola imigwaco yethu edolobheni leselikhulu kaManzini tiba netemgwaco atisebenzi eManzini Mall lapha kungwane street naseMartin Street kulesitaladi lesivelela khona eposini nawusuka eManzini Mall. Tiphinde sibone letinye tingasebenzi eRemand Center nalapha eGap Filling Station kulomgwaco lesubita ngekuthi iCentral Distributor Road. Abashayeli ke baxwayiswa ukuthi abahloniphane kuleti ndzawo leti banikane emathuba lofike kuqala kuhambe yena kuqala. Isachubeka ke nekuhlola yethu umgwaco wethu lomkhulu losuke emhlaleni ubheke khona eSokoto uyahambeka. Lokubi nje ukuthi umgwaco mubi kakhulu nema-potholes lamabi kakhulu. Abashayeli bayaxwayiswa ke lokunciphisa banciphise litubane labo basahamba kuleti ndzawo lena. Baphindze futhi babeketelelane phela lapho khona lomunye azama ukuthi angahambi etukwalelo pothole lelo-ke. Sisahlola yona imigwaco nje sichubeka emgwaqweni lobheka khona eMangayane kunetinkungu kakhulu. Bashayeli ke bayaxwayiswa ukuthi bakhanyise amalambu abo banciphise nelitubane labo. Umgwaco unetinja letinengi. Siyacela nje ukuthi lizinga lebashayeli basahamba kule ndzawo le alibe ngilesetulu kakhulu. Asichubeka sithathaye nalosuka khona kugege ubheke khona enhlangano uyahambeka wona manje nje lokhu khona dinkomo letikhona emgwaqweni. Nalapho lizinga lemshayeli sithi alibe ngilesetulu kakhulu nitubane lakhe bese seliyancipha. Ingako lesinato namuhla msakade.
Sibakhulu Sergeant Nozipho Maseko kusiniketa lo imbiko lomhla ekseni sasalikhefu sibene tindzaba tesingisini.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Abaresearche bafunze
being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhiqiza lokusemini.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. This is the news at 7. His Majesty King Mswati III has informed world leaders that the Kingdom of Eswatini is committed to taking full advantage of opportunities that are availed by digital technologies to deliver seamless government services to the nation. His Majesty delivered a keynote address at the official opening of the 12th World Government Summit in the United Arab Emirates, where His Majesty is accompanied by Inkosikati Magela Lamatlang.
His Majesty King Mswati III joined other heads of state in discussions that focused on shaping the future of governments and adopting new technology innovations to address the most critical challenges affecting humanity, enhancing highly effective governance in areas like service delivery and empowering the youth to build a prosperous future. Leaders, policymakers, and industry experts met to discuss urgent topics like the role of artificial intelligence in governance and in transforming economies. The sustainability of governments to render proper services to the people hinges on their ability to adopt innovative strategies to enhance their performance. His Majesty informed leaders about progress that the Kingdom of Eswatini has made in integrating ICT in its operations. The King called upon countries to align economic growth with environmental responsibility and social equity, saying that the digital transformation of Tinkhundla proves that Eswatini is on the same path.
Your Majesty, King Mswati III, and Ngwenyama, Head of State of the Kingdom of Eswatini, we invite you to deliver the opening address.
His Majesty says Eswatini is counting on artificial intelligence to implement initiatives like Government in Your Hand.
Eswatini's government's model is a testimony to the power of harmonizing tradition with modernity. Our Tinkhundla system is founded on inclusivity, consultation, and community-driven development principles that ensure governance remains deeply rooted in needs of our people. Recognizing the need to evolve, we have embraced reforms that drive transparency, efficiency, and citizen engagement. The digital transformation of governance has been a key focus, ensuring that technological advancements empower rather than exclude. At the heart of our vision is innovation-driven development, a commitment to leveraging science and technology to accelerate economic and social progress.
The King assured the world that the Kingdom of Eswatini stands ready to contribute to the key thematics of the summit, while also embracing new ideas from other countries.
In the Kingdom of Eswatini, we are committed to building a smart government that is efficient, citizen-centric, and technology-driven. Our vision is to harness digital technologies to improve service delivery, eliminate inefficiencies, and ensure that all citizens have access to essential government services. We are prioritizing e-government solution, Government in Your Hand. We will leverage the potential of artificial intelligence to make this vision a reality.
Forming part of the royal delegation are cabinet ministers who will engage on issues touching on their portfolios. This is a report by Sandile Makanya and Tabiso Dlamini in Dubai, United Arab Emirates.
The Minister of Information, Communication and Technology, Honorable Savannah Mazia, says countries can achieve great results if they can collaborate with the common goal of advancing technology. The Minister was speaking at the ongoing 12th World Government Summit in the United Arab Emirates.
The minister was part of a panel discussion with the Minister of Digital Technologies in the Republic of Uzbekistan and the Minister of Information and Communication Technologies in the Republic of Colombia. The panel discussion was centered on the topic, "Is the world ready to embrace the next wave of digital disruption?" The minister spoke passionately about the need for countries to embrace collaboration to advance technology.
But most importantly, I think it's a chance for us to collaborate as a world, to deal and lead differently. We seem to have led from a position of, this is mine, I will not share it with anybody, and I do not want to be able to have anybody else progress. This is a time for us to have a leadership that says we collaborate around the world, let's learn from old lessons, and let's figure out how we make the world digital, but friendly, but safe, and ensure that it's cost effective, because around the world, not everyone can be able to afford to access where we're going. But we need to be able to ensure that nobody's left behind. We need to be able to ensure that women are also part of the conversation. And most importantly, we need to ensure that the youth are part of the conversation.
The minister says Eswatini will reach new heights in technology from its memorandum of understanding with the government of the United Arab Emirates.
We're also looking at a relationship where we continue capacity building. And one of the things that we're talking to the UAE about is the coding experience, which I'm glad to hear others have also been a part of. We're looking to be able to say in the next 2 years, how can Eswatini be able to train 300,000 coders? Now, that may be very little in countries that have very big populations, but we're 1.2 million people. So for us, that number is quite substantial and quite important. We've also been able to learn about how do you ensure that you allow government to really work with the private sector, because sometimes as government we're over here and the private sector's over there. We don't really collaborate.
This is a report by Sandile Makanya and Tabiso Dlamini in Dubai, United Arab Emirates.
The Honourable Minister of Tinkhundla, Skhumbuzo Dlamini, says government is working on a new project designed to improve security across the country's chiefdoms. The Honourable Minister says the project aims to address concerns related to crime and the safety of traditional leaders.
The Minister of Tinkhundla says the Tinkhundla system, which is the basis of Eswatini's political structure, relies on the chiefdoms as a crucial component, and chiefs are custodian of Swazi culture and upholding traditions and ensuring their continuity through generations, hence their safety is crucial. The Honourable Minister of Tinkhundla, Skhumbuzo Dlamini, says it is for that reason that the ministry is working on improving security for local chiefdoms.
Kwanze ukuthi kubiyelwe ngaloku jabulisako akungeni noma ngibani noma ngikuphi libe linye lisango lengena emphakatsini lokho siyakusebenzisa silitiko lokuthi imphakathi ayiphephe lokunye ke sisafaka labo furnace sivayela imphakathi sibukela ukuthi kufuna siyikhanyise futhi emphakathini ekukhanye kuze kuthi kubede mathabela ngodi la ngangena emphakathini sitawukhumbula lokuthi lapho libuya khona live letidlamlilo lama terrorist angena semphakathini alimata abantu emphakathini kwaba nemphefumulo silitiko sesisukumile ke lokuthi akukhanye emphakathini akuvayeleke emphakathini.
The Honourable Minister says chiefdoms serve as a unifying force within the community, fostering a sense of belonging and identity through shared customs and tradition. He says the project aims at addressing concerns relating to crime, emergency response times, and the safety of residents and community leaders. He further says this project is designed to bring a higher level of security to the chiefdoms, ensuring that Emaswati can live and work in a safer environment. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkal Suekoza with Zimuva Shongwe, Babane.
Housing and Urban Development Principal Secretary for Dr. Simon Zwane says the ministry is gathering data to identify gaps in municipal service delivery, particularly in infrastructure maintenance, including buildings and roads. The Principal Secretary says one of the reasons municipalities struggle to provide adequate services is revenue collected from rates is not always sufficient to cover all necessary operations. Dr. Zwane has made this statement when responding to questions about why roads and buildings in urban areas are not in a good condition.
The Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, together with all the towns and cities and town boards in the country, we are working on a plan that we will propose to government in terms of upgrading and maintaining the infrastructure that is found within the urban areas, particularly roads. As we are aware, when you go into towns after the heavy rains, there's a lot of damage that has been caused by those rains, and a lot of money is required to repair. But we are also aware that there's a lot of infrastructure upgrade that is required.
The Ministry of Education, with the Ministry of Labour and Social Security and with the support of the Taiwan Embassy, have launched a youth skills competition in the fields of cooking, baking and automotive technology. During the event, the Honourable Minister of Education was represented by the Undersecretary Naniki Mnisi, while the Minister of Labour and Social Security was represented by the Undersecretary.
The Taiwan Technical Missions Technical and Vocational Skills Certification Enhancement Project has been the backbone of the skills competition. Over the past years, this initiative has contributed to the improvement of skills training facilities, including ICOT, Kwamile and DIVT. The Taiwan ambassador to the country, Jeremy Liang, stated that the project will help participants to enhance their product to meet international standards.
Today, Eswatini is taking a crucial step forward, and I'm confident that this competition will have a lasting impact on the development of technical and vocational education in the country.
The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Naniki Mnisi, is representing the Minister of Education and Training, Honorable Owen Ngumalo.
They are able to open their own businesses or even employ other fellow Swazis in Maswati, and also bring economic growth in the kingdom.
The competition is named Eswatini National Skills Competition and started in August last year. A total of 105 participants from different regions of the country took part. In the cooking category, 40 participants competed, while the welding category had 35 participants, and the automotive technology category had 30 participants. Selection rounds were held in December last year, where the number was reduced to 59 participants across all categories. Now only 30 competitors remain, 10 in cooking, 12 in welding, and 8 in automotive technology. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, with Bongan Masu, Happy Valley Zulwini.
The Eswatini Water Services Corporation Managing Director Chabulile Mashama says companies have a duty to support government in achieving Eswatini's sustainable socio-economic development goals. The MD said this when EWSC donated school uniforms and laptops to Eswatini Special School.
The Eswatini Water Services Corporation, through the Spread Love initiative, during the week of Valentine's Day, they go out and show love in the communities they serve. On Tuesday, EWSC staff members visited Eswatini Special School to donate teaching laptops and uniforms to empower both educators and the students with better learning opportunities. The donation was presented by EWSC Managing Director Chabulile Mashama.
Finally, contributing to the sustainable development of the country. So since corporate social responsibility program ke le ibuketha inhlangothi letiningi letifaka ekhatsi tindzaba tekuphila ka healthcare, tindzaba education, tindzaba nje letonke letilhlupho eveni. Siyathi ke thina singapani ukuthi ngaphandle kwalemimango kude lesingaba ngiko siconza kahle ukuthi kusimama kwayo kusita ukuthi kusimame lelive kusimame na Eswatini Water Services. We're calling on companies as well to actually step up and ensure that we take care of the communities in which we do work in, because without making sure that they're sustainable, we will not have business tomorrow, we will not have a nation tomorrow. So it's incumbent upon all of us that have got some forms of productivity that we go out there and we ensure that we uplift communities. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here at Eswatini School for the special needs children. We have been educated. We came with a big team from Eswatini Water Services just to learn, to understand what is it that the nation is faced with and what are the challenges that are out there.
Eswatini Principal Lindiwe Mhlanga said some learners had ripped up school uniforms.
Sibonge kakhulu konke labasendele kona bafike bantwana babaphathele ema-computer, babaphathele emakhekhe, babaphathele ne-uniform. Sibonga kakhulu, ngiyathemba nakubatali kutaba injabulo lenkulu nabafika bababona sebakhokha i-uniform labanye babo vele kuba bede kakhulu bebahawulisa siyabonga kakhulu.
For the Spread Love Initiative, EWSC is also to rehabilitate a woman's maternity ward and build an outpatient waiting shelter at Tlatsikhulu Government Hospital, and the project is costed at over 600,000 emalangeni. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I am Samgal Swekoza with Mova Shongwe, Babane.
Business Eswatini has highlighted the organization's key expectations from this year's budget. The president, Kusile says they are aware that there might be a decline in the total budget this year, but they are hoping that the minister will focus on key areas as he tackles the budget. The Youth Chamber of Commerce Industries Eswatini has also outlined areas of more support in the budget.
Youth unemployment for me, and general unemployment, but youth unemployment mostly, is a very big concern for Eswatini. And I think if we're going to grow this economy, we do need to, both in private sector and in public sector, work together to grow the employment base so that young people in particular, can find jobs. And obviously completing capital projects that have been ongoing for a long time. The ICC has been ongoing, and the hotel. All those projects have been ongoing for a long time so that government can start new projects. We hear there's a new parliament that's going to be constructed. Would like to understand how budgets are going to go into that, because all those projects can contribute to new employment opportunities. But also the social sector, we've seen a lot of strain in the past year in the health sector in particular. So we hope that not only that the budget will be allocated, but that all outstanding, payments to suppliers to the health sector can be cleared, so that people that supply can be paid within 30 days of supply to government. We wish to have a more efficient government in its cash flow management. So we're looking forward to hear from the minister how he's going to, address those sort of issues.
The Youth Chamber of Commerce Industries Eswatini says they need to see more action and results.
The Ministry of Commerce just launched its SME policy, which is clearly set a roadmap for how we actually can improve the state of our MSME in the country. The only issue that will be there is the investment into the policy implementation. So no, we're expecting direct investment into that MSME policy that was recently launched.
Last year's budget was at 29.4 billion emalangeni. The Minister of Education received 5 billion emalangeni, being the biggest chunk of the budget. 194 million emalangeni was for the OVC fund and 647 million emalangeni was for scholarships. The Minister of Health received 3 billion emalangeni. 909 million emalangeni was allocated to the Deputy Prime Minister's office to support social sector services. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Fuminkosi Nzinisa Mbambane.
And in international news, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance told Europeans on February 11th their massive regulations on artificial intelligence could strangle the technology and rejected content moderation as authoritarian censorship. The United States and Britain did not sign up to the final statement of a French-hosted AI summit on inclusive and sustainable artificial intelligence.
As the artificial intelligence industry continues to grow rapidly, concerns around safety of the technology gave way to geopolitical competition at the Paris AI Action Summit. Leading the American delegation, which champions a hands-off approach, US Vice President J.D. Vance criticized European efforts to curb AI's risks, warning that, quote, excessive regulation could cripple the industry.
We need international regulatory regimes that fosters the creation of AI technology rather than strangles it. And we need our European friends in particular to look to this new frontier with optimism rather than trepidation.
He also appeared to take aim at China after Chinese startup DeepSeek last month freely distributed a powerful AI chatbot that could challenge US leadership in the field.
Partnering with them means chaining your nation to an authoritarian master that seeks to infiltrate, dig in, and seize your information infrastructure.
Unlike China, the US was notably absent from a joint statement from the summit signed by more than 60 nations, pledging to promote AI accessibility to reduce digital divides and ensure AI is open, inclusive, transparent, ethical, safe, secure and trustworthy. French President Emmanuel Macron argued that the AI sector needs rules on the global scale. He positioned Europe as a third way in the AI race, one that avoids dependence on major powers like the US and China.
This third way, which consists of saying, basically, we do not want anyone to be dependent, but we also want fair and open access to these innovations for the entire planet.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi agreed on the need for, quote, collective global efforts to establish governance and standards and ensuring access to all, especially in the global south. After co-hosting with France in Paris, India will host the next international summit on artificial intelligence.
U.S. President Donald Trump has infuriated the Arab world by saying that Palestinians would not have the right of return to the Gaza Strip under his proposal to redevelop the enclave, which has been devastated by an Israeli offensive.
A fresh warning from the U.S. president that puts an already fragile ceasefire in Gaza at risk. Donald Trump says he wants all hostages held by Hamas released on Saturday. Trump's latest statement flies in the face of the current truce agreed to between Israel and Hamas.
If all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2.
The latest statement from the U.S. president comes a week after he floated the idea of the United States taking over the Gaza Strip. While that proposal, deemed outlandish, has been rejected by Arab states, Trump appears to be digging in his heels and now suggests Palestinians currently living in Gaza won't have the right to return once the enclave is rebuilt.
The Palestinians have the right to return? No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building a permanent place for them, because if they have to return now, it'll be years before you could ever. It's not habitable. It will be years before it could happen. I'm talking about starting to build, and I think I could make a deal with Jordan. I think I could make a deal with Egypt.
Hamas says the latest threat from Donald Trump complicates the Gaza truce in place. On Monday, the militant group threatened to delay the next release of hostages slated for the weekend. It came after Israel sent back a low-level delegation from talks in Doha aimed at expanding the ceasefire. UN officials are calling on all sides to stick to the deal in place as fears mount the conflict in the enclave could reignite once again.
The party of South Africa's ex-president Jacob Zuma on February 10th filed a treason complaint against AfriForum, a group championing the white Afrikaner minority, after Donald Trump attacked the country's new law aimed at redistributing white-owned land.
Wearing their party's trademark military outfits and singing anti-apartheid songs, members of South Africa's MK opposition party headed to a Cape Town police station to file a treason complaint against AfriForum. They're accusing the pro-Afrikaner group of influencing Donald Trump's recent decision to cut U.S. funding to South Africa.
Treason has been committed, we contend, by them because they are plotting against our government. First of all, they lied and said their farms have been confiscated and there have been killings and their land was confiscated, which is not true.
Donald Trump on Friday signed an executive order cutting aid to South Africa, citing a disagreement with the country's recently adopted Expropriation Act. The law seeks to address racial land ownership disparities rooted in the apartheid and allows the government to seize and redistribute privately owned land. AfriForum, a group which represents the interests of Afrikaners, aggressively lobbied against the law in the U.S., portraying it as an attempt to persecute South Africa's white minority. But while the group welcomed Trump's decision to cut aid to South Africa, it declined an offer by the U.S. president to resettle in the United States as refugees.
We have to state categorically, we don't want to move elsewhere.
South Africa's ruling ANC party also accused AfriForum of spreading misinformation on the Expropriation Act and said Trump's executive order failed to recognize the country's profound and painful history of colonialism and segregation.
President Donald Trump on Monday fired another volley in his ongoing trade war, announcing 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium imports and cancelling exemptions and duty-free quotas for major suppliers.
Another shot in President Donald Trump's trade war. On Monday, he announced 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. This is the beginning of making America rich again.
You are the president who's standing up for the American steelworker, and I am just tremendously impressed and delighted to stand next to you.
Trump's trade advisor says this move will help domestic producers and support the nation's economic and national security. The biggest foreign steel suppliers, Canada, Brazil, Mexico, and South Korea, are likely to be hit hardest. Earlier Monday, Beijing's additional 10 to 15% tariffs on U.S. goods took effect as a countermeasure to Trump's 10% hike on Chinese goods earlier this month.
There are no winners in trade wars and tariff wars. What is needed now is not unilateral tariff increases, but equal dialogue and consultation based on mutual respect. We urge the U.S. to correct its wrong practices and stop politicizing and instrumentalizing economic and trade issues.
But Trump says not only rivals, but also allies were taking advantage of the U.S.
We were being pummeled by both friend and foe alike. Our nation requires steel and aluminum to be made in America, not in foreign lands. We need to create, in order to protect our country's future, a resurgence of U.S. manufacturing and production, the likes of which has not been seen for many decades.
Many economists believe tariffs raise consumer prices. Scholars of supply chains and logistics say Trump's move also raises major global policy questions.
It's not clear what whether this is a negotiating strategy, whether this is going to be permanent. Is this only restricted to Canada, Mexico, and China as it is now, or is it going to expand to, the European Union, for example, or even the BRICS countries, of which Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and 12 or 14 other countries are part of.
These concerns may prompt countries to realign their trade relationships, he said, which will likely alarm producers.
Businesses, again, hate uncertainty, so they're going to put everything on pause. That means, there's could be a decrease in production activity, while at the same time the tariffs could have inflationary effects.
Some in the U.S. automotive industry, headquartered in Detroit, Michigan, echoed that concern.
Sudden tariffs to a system, there isn't a lot of good that comes out of that.
Trump has moved lightning fast on this issue in his second term.
We'll also be announcing steel tariffs on Monday.
Tomorrow?
Monday, tomorrow.
U.S. trade partners have warned that the tariffs could hurt automakers, shipbuilders, and other U.S. industries.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi heads to Washington this week for a visit expected to be dominated by issues relating to trade, immigration, defense, and strategic ties. India, which has built a strong partnership with the U.S., is expecting to face turbulence on issues such as trade, but hopes mutual geostrategic concerns will help maintain steady ties.
As Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi prepares to meet President Donald Trump in Washington, New Delhi expressed optimism about the visit.
I think Prime Minister's visit to the United States will give further direction and impetus to this very important partnership.
Modi shared warm ties with Trump in his first term. However, the Indian leader this week will have to navigate contentious issues on trade and immigration, which are among Trump's top priorities. He has called India a tremendous tariff maker. New Delhi is taking steps to address those concerns. Earlier this month, it said it will lower import duties on some items that will benefit American exports, such as high-end motorcycles and cars. it may be prepared to make other concessions, say analysts.
Certainly, as a great negotiator and bargainer, he would ask for more. And India also bargains very well. So somehow we'll try to make a kind of compromise.
Increasing the purchase of weapon systems and technology are likely to be discussed. Last month, President Trump called on Modi to buy more security equipment from the US. New Delhi, the world's largest importer of military equipment, needs a range of weapon systems.
The US is a little concerned that it's losing out on the India buys. So it is stepped up pressure. There's likely to be initiatives on transport aircraft, surveillance aircraft for the Navy, and possibly even fighter aircraft, as well as a lot of technology transfers for engines, for aircraft engines, infantry combat vehicles.
India also has agreed to take back from the US undocumented migrants, but it will call for their better treatment during future deportations. Last week, reports of more than 100 undocumented Indians being shackled while they were brought back to India from the US on a military plane has led to an uproar. At the same time, India's top priority will be to protect legal channels of immigration for skilled Indian workers and students heading to American universities.
People-to-people exchanges constitute the bedrock of our deepening ties with the United States.
Modi said his meeting with President Trump will be an opportunity to build upon the successes of their collaboration in his first term. Mutual concerns about an assertive China are likely to keep the two countries aligned. India and the US are partners in the Indo-Pacific.
It was President Donald Trump who dusted off the Quad, which was in a dormant stage for about 10 years, and he was solely responsible for reviving it. This is an area where India and the US have lots of things in common for maintaining peace, stability, and contributing towards the growth story in the Indo-Pacific region.
Building on those common interests, this week's talks will be an opportunity to see if India-US ties continue to gain momentum in Trump's second term.
In our sports news, Manzini Wanderers Supreme Court case has entered its second day before Judge Sabelo Matsebula, Judge Nkululeko Hlope and Judge Margaret van der Walt.
Manzini Wanderers' case at the Supreme Court proceeded on Tuesday before Judge Sabelo Matsebula, Judge Nkululeko Hlope and Judge Margaret van der Walt, where Premier of Eswatini submitted an urgent application challenging a judgment of the High Court that was released last year that if needs be, teams should be increased to either 15 or 6 teams in order to clarify the mistake that saw Manzini Wanderers getting relegated. However, the court decided that the judgment will be influenced by the judgment yet to be released from Monday hearing, where Moroni Pirates and Chima Moses representatives failed to provide records of having appealed at the High Court. Manzini Wanderers in the matter are being represented by Mduduzi Tsotsimabila, while Moroni Pirates and Chima Moses are being represented by Lucas Mazia. Premier League of Eswatini is represented by Merulegi Ndlangamandla. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabrice Msonera, Mbabane.
All right, it's 27 minutes before 8 o'clock, and that's it for our second bulletin. Thank you for staying with us. We're hoping to speak to the CEO of the Youth Enterprise Revolving Fund, Mandla Nkambule, with what is the progress with loan repayment. Beneficiaries of young people that have been awarded with money to fund their businesses or expand their businesses. We're hoping to talk to him soon. ama-challenges labasolo bahlangabetana nawo ukuthi young people still fail to pay back the loans. So ukuthi what strategies have they come up with this year kuzama ukuthi kubakhuthaza ukuthi bakhone ukubhadala lawo ma-loans lawo. And of course, abantu labasha play a critical role in the development of the economy of Eswatini. Ngaloko ukuthi nabacala ama-business lawo or bawa-expanda ku-createka imisebenzi for bamfu labaningi lapha eveni njengoba solo youth unemployment isezingeni elisetulu about 50%. Inombolo lesetulu kakhulu leyo. Lama-business lawo labawacalako do sustain a lot of people. Mnengi umsebenzi londiwa youth enterprise revolving fund kuzama nje kuqinisa hlangothi laba mhlabasha kanye netamabhizinisi lapha eSwatini. Sifuna ukuvana kuye Mr. Mandla Nkambule ukuthi babuke kusebenza kanjani njengoba umnyaka lomusha nje uhulumende utawuqala nga-April. How much money has been awarded to beneficiaries? How much money has been paid back to the fund? Hoping to speak to Mr. Mandla Nkambule lomhla ekuseni. So let's take a break. Sabiya khona manje.
When artificial intelligence takes your job, the revolutionary technology can increase productivity, boost economic growth, and lift incomes. But it may also threaten employment and widen inequality. The likely effects of AI on the global economy, as well as our lives and livelihoods, are cause for both excitement and concern. Let's start with how it's reshaping work. IMF research shows that almost 40% of jobs worldwide could be affected by AI. In advanced economies, the share rises to 60%, posing both opportunities and risks. In some scenarios, jobs may evolve, even vanish, as AI takes on tasks traditionally performed by humans. For example, AI-powered chatbots and virtual assistants can already handle many customer service inquiries. The bright side is that AI can also complement worker skills, enhancing productivity and opening up new opportunities. AI-powered algorithms can analyze medical images with precision, assisting doctors in making quicker, more accurate diagnoses. New jobs and even new industries may also arise. In most emerging markets and low-income countries, there is a smaller share of high-skilled jobs than in advanced economies. So they will likely be less affected and will face fewer immediate disruptions from AI. At the same time, many of these countries don't have the infrastructure or skilled workforces needed to harness the benefits of AI. This could worsen inequality among nations. AI could also affect income and wealth inequality within countries. Workers who can harness AI may see pay gains or greater productivity, while those who can't may fall behind. Younger workers may find it easier to exploit opportunities, while older workers could struggle to adapt. In most scenarios, AI will likely worsen overall inequality, a troubling trend that policymakers must prevent. The key question then is, how can we ensure that these rapid gains in AI benefit everyone? To help countries craft the right policies, the IMF has developed an AI Preparedness Index that measures readiness in areas like digital infrastructure, human capital and labor market policies, innovation, and regulation. It shows that wealthier economies like Singapore, the US, and Denmark tend to be better equipped for AI adoption than low-income countries. Advanced economies should expand social safety nets, invest in training workers, and prioritize AI innovation and integration. They also need to strengthen regulation to protect people from excessive risks and abuses and build trust in these technologies. Emerging markets and developing economies should lay a strong foundation by investing in digital infrastructure and digital training for workers. Together, we can navigate this revolution with foresight and humanity, ensuring a prosperous, inclusive future for generations to come.
Asiphinze sinemukele simakhulu uhlala nathi lo mhla ekseni besivedele ukuthi sisitabe sixoxisana nemphathi wesikhwama Youth Enterprise Revolving Fund Mr. Mandla Nkambule kunenge lesikwendako lesikhwama leso kuzama nje ukuthuthukisa impilo debantfu labasha lapha eveni ngokuthi sikhona ukuba niketa imali ukuthi baqale emabhizinisi noma ke bandlondlobalise lawo mabhizinisi abo ngonyama ke nayivula eParliament yavete ukuthi leli luhlangothi lo critical futhi inkulu inzima ledlala abamfu labasha ekuvule nomnotho welive leSwatini ngakho kubalekile ukuthi vele tidzingo tabo dichubeke ukuthi dinakekeleke sifuna ukuthi ngabe lesikhwama solo siyachubeka and si consistent yini vele ngokukwenda lokho Mr. Nkambule joins me now sikuvusele msuthu sabona ube nasi lomhla ekseni
siyabonga siyajabula ukuthi nisimeme sivusele nebabukele baka Eswatini TV ngicabanga ukuthi ngidawucala ngekukhutalwandle ngithi bayethe wena waphakathi sibonge inkulumo yengwenyama le ithulile kule parliament nayivula ngicabanga ukuthi njengobuta nayibuta lenkulumo icukethe ikhuluma ngemlomo usha kakhulu lokushengisako lokusineta nemandla nasesinetho lomsebenzi nayo insha ngicani siyabona ukuthi ingwenyama insha esenhlitweni yayo ngiphinze ngisho ukuthi live liyabona ukuthi insha kungumnotho lo nguyombamba ngomlibalo wembili weMaswati ngingasho ukuthi inkulumo yengwenyama nayibuka insha ibese iyakhuluma kakhulu ngenzabe ukuthi insha inakekeleke ngetemfundo insha inakekeleke ngetemakhono insha inakekeleke ngetempilo general iphinze inakekele ngetemabhizinisi ngoba live liyabonakala ukuthi cha umhlaba nawo wonke nje uyabonakala ukuthi sekude umsebenzi lomusha umsebenzi kenyalo ukuthi insha isebende ngoba emathuba amaningi ensha ukuthi isebende nangephandle ithengise lele khichitako kepha lokho sikubona ukuthi ngilamakhono naye ngakhona nje inkulumo ngonyama begceka akube nemakhono kuphinze kusentshetwe kuze live lethuthuke
ngabe inesikhwama ngalokuthi vele umsebenzi wenu emsuthu ukuthi vele ninikede abamfla abasha imali ukuthi baqale amabhizinisi abo labanye bafuna imali ukuthi ba-expand amabhizinisi abo ngabe nisese consistent ngokwendeni lokho bamfla abasha banibambisa because ngiyakhumbula ukuthi ngaphambilini esikhwama vele sake savala ngithi safike ukuthi bamfla abasha basakhona ukubhadala imali basakhona ukuthi baphinze bayibhadale labanye abamfla abasha batokhona ukuzuzwa nabo kulesikhwama sakhona nikubambisana nabo
ngingasho ukuthi kulesimo lesikhona semnotho insha nasibuketa isibambise kakhulu sibona insha iyacela ticelo ukuthi tifake bafuna kwenda emabhizinisi nangikhuluma nje nyalo ema applications lesinawo lesiwasebenzako kuphela kwaBhimbidvwane ngingasho ukuthi there are over 262 amounting to 10 million la khona la sasenjeto kulesikhona kubanika ke kulomnyaka ngikhulumela lo mnyaka lesikuwo wa April to 31st March 2025 sesibanikile labangu9 isikhuluma nyalo osikhipha imali enganga 4 million kuyatshengisa ukuthi insha iningi ema applications ethu nasesiwabuka nje ucishe onke lamanye la sasengasenjetwa lamanye la sichamuka ngemuva sikhuluma ngema applications la over 500 amounting to 30 million the appetite seyikhona ngumuntu lomusha ngoba uyabona ukuthi bafuna kusebenza bayasibambisa kakhulu ngalama applications ngicabanga ukuthi nathi leti ngucuko lesitendile bese sifaka sandla kucala maybe ukuthi nayo kube kuhambe kancane ngosiphesikhashane nabo leti ngucuko lesitendile ngekuthi sivule emahhovisi abedvute cishe live lonke sibe kuvute nalokuthi nje nathi sakhe ukuthi silithengise le mali sisimali ikhona abantu ukuthi itholakala kuphi neti ngucuko leti nesitendile ukuthi nyalo sesiyachumana ngetemlilo bakhona kungenana kubo online bachumana dinenge ngikucole standile nalokuthi nyalo sekungiwaya bayeda nje noma nini bacela kucela imali silethi ngikucole tenda ukuthi kube malula setinenge ngikucule sifise kudenda kuze ukuthi basitakale kakhulu I think lenye ngayibeka nje ngikucole khona ukuthi ikhona lensha ngoba sehlweni kathathu ngisho sekhona lensha lefundzile lebanema degrees labanema certificate ase college kubalula lokuba ku understand abo business plan sibe nensha yesibili le ngathi sithi out of school nayo iyakhanza ukuthi yakhona khona ke kunabo bese sibana lensha lenye lesayinengi nayo lekhanza ukuthi ayikakhona ichubeka netemfundo tabo bale emakhaya nayo kwelensha lesesibuke ukuthi asesenda lenye program lesibita ngayo siphecele enterprise facilitators sikwazi ukuthi le community ebasupport sitrain abantu abatokhona kubasita ababendele lamaphepha labo business plan babendele nalabo cash flow basibone ukuthi lokungathi kuyaba bese kuya akubakhuthadi ngisho njalo ngeSwati indzaba yalama business plan lokugcwasana lama application forms ngicabanga ukuthi ngiko leti ngcinamba sibona sikho siyadibuka leti ngcinamba tabo sifunze nathi sibone ukuthi singaba sitanja ngoba kwethu lokukhulu sifuna ukukhipha le mali sinekede insha ama business kuze live litfutfuka
sisakhuluma nje ngalama applications Mr Nkambule ingabe vele niyayibuka yini diversification yalama business ideas le notfolako ningathi kanze nje seni access mhlambe ama business manje ngibekisa agriculture niyalibona yini lolushintsho nje ngeminyaka kulama business ideas labafakako
lengakusho nyalo siyabona ilutshintsho lelinengi siyabona lengiyethi phecelete ke mina 21st century skills siyabona insha yethu yangena ku innovation insha yethu lamakhono lewafundzele iyakhona kuwasebenzisa sinangabona nje nyalo ubuke ukuthi bobane sibanika imali nasibanika imali siyaniketa imali labafuna kwenda ema applications lathite labafuna kwenda lengathi phecelete innovation sayineta imali khasene youth lenenge lengenela kubo engineering la bakufunza konyalo lensha yethu yakhona kusamisa lelikhono ukuze ichubeke sibone bameli bahlangana sibone nabo thisha labasiphatha umsebenzi abafunza ubuthisha sebahlangana sebacale ema tutors funse emakhaya and info lenhle sekunabo education kunabo health sibonile nema pharmacists ayakhula sebanenge labafunzele ama pharmacists semanengi basonzela sibonile abanye labema agronomists abafundisa ngetenangu tekulima hayi lokuthi balime basithe sesibabonile sebavule cishe live lonke bo hardware sibabonile sengasho ukuthi le portfolio yethu ayisafubukeli kakhulu le ecala besithi ibukete tekulima kepha tekulima sesithi asethi sithathe nato tisuke la kulimeni kuphela tibe khona iprocessing ngayo ke lesikubuka ukuthi imali eningi legcine nayo khona kucaleni so we are encouraging them ukuthi bacabanga iprocessing bo feedlot sasi abayikhulise leso silwane sabo bese bacabanga nalokuthi akathi tsengisele phela kufece uma imali esekugcinene la kucaleni ukhanza uthola encane wena so we are looking at promoting nalabo integrated farming kukakhulu kubo feedlot ukuthi akafuna kona free butchery a process ende la konda abo brevos ende kudla afake nasisabuketana sibambisene kakhulu nensha yethu but nje lokubonakala kulamananga ale innovation kepha ke le innovation hlupha ukuthi idulile lethi mali lesinato asikhona kubahlangabeta kahle lese sikwendile sibone ukuthi no asibukede labanye labanikata imali ngaba ngemabhange ethu la kangwane bese sibona labanye ihlobo lelunye lelinikate imali phenze lithuthukisa ngathi ngaba venture capitalists we are working with those potential funders ama impact investors because la ukhanza anal appetite for ama projects la innovative la creative la khula so siyabona sebakhona labanye batozivakashela kulama vikilatako nje batobuketa lama projects endowa insha yethu kangwane
okay ngalokuthi nje babe Nkambule nani sabuka lama applications ninengidimvule ndibukako ngaphambi kokuthi niphasise ukuthi lo muntu loyo ayithole imali ukufaka ekhathi mhlambe ama profits ukuthi batawukhona ngene ama profits kuze le business itaba sustainable ngathi ukuthi sabaphinza baboleka imali sebaya retrench ingabe vele kukhona inima business lesenwafandile njengoba the past year the past 2 years lesakhona ukuthi vele afake lokuncane emnothweni live nala sabakhona nje ecasha bamfla abanenge
emabhizinisi ethu incumbi sivele siyaqinqinisa lesandla lacala ama assessment ngoba sifuna kwakha umuntu lomushelo twenty business nakusasa lengathi phecelele abe sustainable nangabe ayikalungu kahle siyakusida vele ngoba nawungabo iprogram yethu iba nemamento ikubambisa ikuside lokuthi ukukhona koyifundzela le business uma lokunye lokukhona ngathi lokubulala kwamabhizinisi sifanda umuntu lone idea lona sifiso sokwenda info lethide kepha ude kahle lamakhono okwenda le business bese ke siyambambisa kulabo labakhonile labaphamisesana labakhona kusibambisa bakubambisana kuhlangabetana ukhanze ukuthi bayavuma lokuthatha ifundo bende bo training la spendako sibabonile bathuthuka bakhonile ecasha abantu ukhanza ukuthi ibhizinisi inyamcasha 3 noma 4 abantu on average baphinzela abanye bakhona ekubhadala nje sisho siyadvumisa kukhona insha yethu lesolo nayibolekele imali iyayibhadala sinayo nje insha yethu lesolo ibhadala ekaze i-default mabhizinisi endakahle ayakhona ukuthi e-office abhadale njengedivumelwano lesatenda bayasibambisa kulelo hlanganiselo kakhulu insha yethu lenye lama business lamanye njengobuta ukuthi lamanye afeyile ukhanze ukuthi lesizathu ukuthi angaphucubeke amabhizinisi aphathekile dinenge dinkinga takhona dinkiletinye sithi ngema economic conditions the market conditions the business conditions ethu or business climate kuyasifaka sandla nabo competition ke kuyiningi competition esibuka ukuthi umlomusha nato thengisa emarket yinye kuba khona le challenge siyajabula nje ngasho ukuthi sibonile uhulumende government wethu athatha ukuthi na Economic Citizen Empowerment Act lokho ema regulations ukuthi umlomusha nalabo bomake nalo muntu lomusha lokhubatekile akuphela akanakekelwe igovernment ibisibe intentional ukuthi areservelwe ukuthi akhona ku-accessa ema-tenders ahulumende nawo lama parastatals ne-private sector I think itasiyalandzela ibona ukuthi uhulumende nayo khona la kwendako kule hlangothi ngoba angeke akhona ukukhompyutha nalalapha i-competition yole babulalako istiff nalokunye ke lokukhanze ukuthi kuyahlupha lengathi kusinsana nebusiness indzaba yale product yabo ukuthi le product yabo iliyayilungela imarket nokunye lokwendekako indzaba lenye ke nama cost ekwenda le business siwabonile ukuthi labanye kuyabashaya kakhulu ukhanze ukuthi bathenga into ngephandle if ba importer lama prices asedulu njena ubanya lo nabe nje wenda bo agriculture incumbi yetinto tichamele kubo Ukraine kubo Russia nabo Israel sinangabe kunale timpi kuyas affect ngalendzaba yema prices ngisho ukuthi kungaba ngiloko kepha lokunye lokukhona ngilendzaba yetifundo tethu lesingakatendi kahle silive lama business sithi siwangenise le entrepreneurship tema business maybe ngathi ngepheceleti higher primary itingene letifundo tibe part of a life skill sicaba ukuthi kungayisithi kungalithuthukisa live ukuthi letifundo sitfundzise bantu baphume banayo le business ngoba lokuningi khanze ukuthi bade le financial management ukuthi imali iphathwa kanjani umlomusha phatha imali nje akade usifuna kayinde nayo akakhona ukulonsa ibhizinisi imali yebusiness nemali yakhe ukhanze sekuthenga netimfront letingabasidi letingayisidi ibhizinisi ukuthi ithuthuke dinengana le dizathu letibabangelako ngapha siyachubeka naletifundo ukuthi batitfola abaconnected for letifundo siyabona bayabhanga siyabona nemabhange lamanye nalesebenta nabo labanye banayo interest ukuthi asibagraduate sibalethe kubo kube say pipeline asesakhela bona emabhange nje kithi ngasho kangwane lesesikhulumisene nawo anayo letifiso sidala benda kahle asesibanikete sibathuthukise betekithi
ingabe nje kubuta nje mhlambe kusesendela nje umvulomoshe lo mhlambe lofuna kufaka isicelo sakhe naye Mr Nkambule ngimaphe ama requirements nje lathingekile ukuthi atokhona benefit kule fund
angicela ngalokuthi imali tethu sifanda noma ngiphi business lesemthethweni ngoba bakwazi hawo lokhu naloku bese kuthi sifanda umuntu lomusha kwecala lo semkhathini wa 18 to 35 years I think nako lokumcala zonke 18 to 35 uliswati lo lato awusicha udelwela kangwane noma unencwadi ekuhlala kangwane let's it kwecala lokho kwesibili lesikufunako ukuthi uchamkise ibusiness umcondvo wakho ukuthi ufuna kwendani ngawubhala ngesiswati noma ubhala ngani maphepha akhona ekhasini lethu langcondvo mshina ungawathola khona noma uvakashele tindzawo lesithi sinema regional offices sisesteki sisenhlangano silambabane sikamanzini nalamanye sesakhela amanye sithi ema satellite offices lamancane kahlathi sikhona esithobela sikhona nasemhlambanye sisikhona satovula lamanye ingcenye nasesipiki sikhona nalabo plan sabota letinye tinza ngalothi sibdud lama office ethu ahlala avuliwe kunebantu labasita nako ema requirements lamqoka kunokwenda lo mcondvo wakho yale business ubhale phansi singathi business plan bese uyatshengisa ke ukuthi research ngale business ukuthi ngidawuthenga ngoba ibusiness akusiko lo mcondvo kuphela ibusiness i-forecasting lokuthi ngubani ofutawuthenga le info yakho utakwenda malini bese usendela ke leyo cash flow forecast. Letinye tinfo ke kukhanza ukuthi setinfo letincane letifaka ukuthi utawusebentela kuphi nalo uthi utawuthengisela abantu ukuthi nje kube khona leto ngathi ngema letters of intent otedivuma cha ngidawuthengisela abantu uyavuma ukuthi utangithengisela utawucupha kuphi nalo tinfo letinye temcoko akasima khulu lamanango leke kukhanze ukuthi kuyabakhalisa kunenza betitembu lesiye sithi titembu tasemiphakathi nasetinkundleni lesithi just know your customer lokho kwenda ubufakazi ukuthi cha uliswati uyadiwa emphakathi uyadiwa nasenkundleni ukhanze ukuthi abanye ke kuba netinkanyana lapho kepha ke sihulumende usibonise ukuthi cha batoti sebena letinkinga kuhlukaniseke lo msebenzi ukuthi cha lo umsebenzi wemali nalele tinkinga letikhona tiba khona lemakhaya kithi siyadati tingathinthani kakhulu kuyase i-education yakho ayisinfo lemcoko kangaka ukuthi ufundzile okafunza sikubudi lo kepha siyathanda ukuthi usatisa sokhona kukusida nalokuthi ushoda kangakanani emakhono uyacala yini noma ucala bese leti imali ke siyakunika ungata uwedva sekunikete imali soka ku-5,000 to 50,000 uwedva nje uyisiye sithi sole trader ungeta ni company ke ngoba seyiformal siyakuneta from 5,000 to 100,000 yekucala leyo nanihlangene nihlangene nibaningana sithi nema cooperatives siyaniketa up to 150,000 kule standard loan siphindze ke ngoba lenye imali sifuna ukuthi vele isebende kakhulu ukhanza ukuthi uneli order nje khona lapha thuthu khona ukuthi ngisupply nako siyafuna ke kubaniketa vele leyo siyifunda 100% up to 200,000 lokuthi athi sengifole nako ngifuna ukusupply nje kuvulwa tikola kufuneka tinfo teku clean ema-classini ungaletha lelo order la ka youth fund ngoba leyo liyaqalisa noma ngaba malini ezonke abanele incwadi leshoko lekuthi cha uthengisela abantu order libe khona sakuneta leyo mali hamba uyothenga nasa uthengisile sebakubhadala uyasiniketa lo mthengisele imali ikhona ke lenye imali le ngathi sisitwa ipartner yethu lesithi ngukhula nathi MTN kwanyalo losibambisile yekuthi nje igama lethi khula nathi yekuthi labo labacela emabhizinisi bese siphindze siyabaniketa usiniketa imali cishe umnyaka ngeminyaka up to bo 200,000 bayikhulisa ngeminyaka babo ukuthi sisebenza kangakanani so ngingasho ukuthi iyasebenza sikhwama abantu abasha basonzele emahhovisi ethu etifundzeni basonzele kulawo ma satellite offices ilusito sidabaniketa vele njengengwenyama ishito ukuthi isinikete instruction ukuthi asibantu abasha sibathuthukise ngema business asisike sodwa sibambisene nencumbi ngoba kukahle ukuthi nasikhuma siba recognize maningi nama organizations asibambisile lafundzisako lamanye aletinangu sinabo JA lababo interest nabo enectars nalabanye labatimele bo BSA ngihlebahlebeta lapha abatimele kepha bafundzisa ngoba nalamakhono esiwafundisako nalabo nala timabhizinisi emakhono baplambe sesema artisans nabo siyabafanda kwanza ukuthi sophumile ufuna kusebenza so shoda nge-toolkit i-funding ikhona yalo konke liswati lenemcondo uma ufuna ukusebenza yena noma ufuna kwakha noma ufuna ilini ushoda ngemathuluzi siyamfanda ngisho njalo
no ngiyavakala sithemba ukuthi umvulo omusha uyeva baba Nkambole so utawuvela nje ofisini noma kuyachumana nani ku social media mbukele so utivele mathuba akhona for bamfla basho ukuthi bangatindlodlobalisa ngekuthi bathole imali idecala amabhizinisi noma bandlodlobalise lawo amabhizinisi abo kuva kabandi ungachumana nabo baka Youth Enterprise Revolving Fund saselke fo sabiya khona manje.
Welcome to Eswatini Lifestyle. This is your ultimate guide to the entertainment, to the lifestyle and the culture of Eswatini.
Eswatini Lifestyle. Eswatini Lifestyle.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
From 6:30 to 7 p.m. On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
All right, and it's only a minute before 8 o'clock. We've come to the end of this episode of Kusile Breakfast Show. YouTube. We'll see you tomorrow again at exactly 6 a.m.